الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters, and a blessed Friday to all of you. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, one God, one undivided, one above and beyond any and all of His creation. He, the God who does not beget, nor is He begotten, the Almighty, the All-Knowing, and the All-Powerful. I bear witness that Muhammad ﷺ is the Prophet and the Messenger of God, His servant and the seal of the prophets, the last sent by Him in order to guide His flock and to guide the people of this world. Let us proceed. The recent sickening, racist, disturbing murder of George Floyd has sparked a wildfire of rage, anger, and revolutionary zeal across the United States of America. All over the country, and not only where it started in Minneapolis, the oppressed races are rising up against white supremacy, against racism and institutional discrimination, for which the United States of America, as the world's foremost imperialist power, is so well known. The Black Americans, Latinos, Native Americans, Chicanos, Asian Americans and all other oppressed ethnicities and races, particularly those of a darker skin who live in the United States, are rising up now and demanding their rights. In the name of George Floyd, in the name of all the other Americans, and particularly Black Americans, Native Americans and Latinos who have been murdered by racist police violence over the past years, decades, and even centuries, they are now rising up and taking to the streets in order to protest and in order to demand that their rights will be met and that their centuries of oppression will finally cease. This conflict, let us not fool ourselves, is a flare-up of revolutionary spirit. It may not yet be a revolution, but it is definitely a start. It's a historical development, something that hasn't been seen in the United States for a long time. This is not, as Democrats and liberals would want us to believe, an uprising or a series of protests against Donald Trump himself. It's not even really a protest against the Republican Party or against the current ruling administration of the United States. This is a struggle that goes far beyond that. It is far greater than any of these things that the Democrats or liberals or so-called moderates would want us to believe. This is a struggle against the very white supremacist fabric that is endemic to the United States of America and has been part and parcel of American history ever since the foundation of the United States of America as a country in 1776. Indeed, the ruling class of this United States of America has been embedded in a form of hypocrisy ever since the very start. We know that one of the most important founding fathers of the United States of America, Thomas Jefferson, was a public opponent of slavery and has written extensively on the fact that he considered slavery a violation of the natural order and of natural rights of mankind, and of course in violation of the very principles that he wrote down in the US Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution. However, we will see as well that Thomas Jefferson never acted upon these moral judgments and instead owned hundreds of slaves, which he used for a variety of nefarious purposes. The same thing could be said for George Washington. In fact, there is reason to believe that Thomas Jefferson was at a certain moment planning to indeed write texts regarding the impermissibility of racism, of slavery in this new United States of America in the official text for the foundation of the country, but these were scrapped as soon as they saw a possibility. This hypocrisy is further shown when you see that the founding fathers laid the blame for the transatlantic slave trade squarely in the lap of the King of the United Kingdom, the King of the English colonial powers. They blamed the British for having introduced slavery to America, yet when the United States became independent, they did nothing in order to stop this. In fact, one could say that slavery became even more widespread after the United States' independence than it was before that. The first so-called proposed Great Seal of the United States of America actually depicted the exodus of the slaves of Banu Israel from slavery at the hands of Pharaoh in Egypt. The original slogan of the United States was "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." Truer words have rarely been spoken, yet it seems to have shaken the founding fathers to the very core of their being, because they immediately moved to replace not just the slogan, but replaced the entirety of the Great Seal, and instead changed it into the vague Freemasonic imagery that we know now, the pyramid and the eye, and the slogan "E pluribus unum," which means "out of the many, one." Even this slogan could be considered to be anti-racist in meaning, anti-racist in spirit. However, the history, the facts on the matter have shown that the United States considered the many races that would be one to be races of a variety of European white people. The United States has never, ever decided to involve the darker skinned people, involve minorities, involve Native Americans, involve African Americans. The United States has de facto always been a nation in which freedom, justice, and the pursuit of happiness applied only to a very limited and select happy few. The oppressed and the wretched of the earth were never considered to be part of this community of the free. One by one, all these oppressed minorities have felt the wrath of the elite, have felt oppression at the hands of the elite of the United States of America. The proletarians in general, the Catholic Christians, the Irishmen, the Italians, the Chinese, the Japanese, the African Americans, the Latinos, the Native Americans, the Jews, the Muslims, the Arabs. All these minorities have at a certain point in time, and often for an extended long period of time, felt the American elite hatred upon them. This was expressed in terms of slavery, in terms of servitude, in terms of police repression, in terms of massacres, and in terms of mass incarceration. It is our duty as Muslims and our duty as socialists to rise up with the people who rise up in order to demand that their rights be met. These people who demand that justice is done and that they will finally have the rights that they were born to have. Allah has forbidden us to conduct racial discrimination. It has forbidden us to participate in racism. Our God has told us that oppression, racism, racial oppression, corruption, and discrimination are mortal sins that are completely contradictory to the laws and the covenant of the God of the prophets. We are taught to enjoin the good and forbid the evil, and this is something that is definitely applicable to the current situation. Something that many people don't know is that Islam has always had a key role in the abolitionist movement in the United States of America and in the Americas in general. The Mali revolt in Bahia, the province of Brazil, in 1837 is a great example. Here, Islamic African slaves rose up against the Portuguese yoke of white supremacism and slavery. They were inspired by Islam and inspired by the call to freedom made by the prophets of God. In Haiti, which is the great example of black liberation on the Western Hemisphere, Muslim clerics and guerrilla leaders actually played a key role in supporting the 1804 revolution of Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. This revolution would establish the very first free black republic in the Western Hemisphere, a nation in which black people could look up to and see that they could be free in a modern black-dominated society, in a republic of free black people. Now, in cooperation with various organizations and individuals of faithful people and socialists, most importantly, our brethren in Christians for Socialism and Jewish Comrades for Socialism, our organization, Muslims for Socialism, has decided to co-sign and take even a leading role in drafting and signing the joint message of support and solidarity with the uprising against racist violence. This joint message is being drafted and written as we speak and is being signed and proposed to a variety of organizations around the world and is being translated in a variety of languages. This is a joint declaration of faithful people of Abrahamic traditions worldwide, and especially in the United States, of people who stand up for justice, for liberty, for freedom, and for equality. It is of the utmost importance, I believe, for all freedom-loving Muslims and socialists of this world to express solidarity with the uprising of the oppressed races of America against racism, imperialism, and white supremacy. Only by doing this and by putting in action the things that we preach, putting in action the words of the Holy Quran, can we really call ourselves proper Muslims. Islam, after all, is not a religion of the word alone. Islam is, always has been, and will always be a religion of praxis, a religion of the practical deed, a religion of deeds of courageous fellow Muslims who decide to stand up for justice no matter the cost and no matter how hard it can be. Because we know that the reward that will be given for those who stand up for justice is far greater than the reward than anything we can be given in this mortal life. Our deen tells us to stand up for justice and to bring the word of our God, the word of our Creator, into practice. And this is, I believe, something that we have to do, especially when a historical opportunity and a potential turning point in history, like the riots, the protests, and the revolutionary situation in the United States of America is right now. I wish you all a very good Friday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.